At this point, all the tank plumbing is done and the collectors and tubing connections have all been made. It's time to get the system up and running. This is the most critical segment of all. The following steps need to be done exactly as mentioned for the system to operate properly. In this segment, we will describe how to fill the tanks, how to connect the sensors to the ICM, and how to properly fill the system with water and heat transfer fluid. Pay close attention to the following steps. Remove the aerator screen from a faucet in the home and turn on the hot water. As an alternate method, you can open the hot water on a bathtub faucet. Next, open the main water valve to the house. Then, open the water valve to the water heater. This will purge the system of air as the water heater fills. Check for any leaks and repair as needed. Once you are certain all of the air is purged, turn off the faucet and reinstall the aerator screen. Finally, turn on the water heater. If you're using an electric water heater, turn the circuit breaker on. If you're using a gas water heater, turn on the gas and follow the instructions on your water heater to light the pilot. Inspect the tank fittings for leaks and tighten if needed. Before you attach the power cord to the ICM, make sure the solar switch on top of the display is set to off. Route the power/ground cord into the ICM next to the lower left flexible hose. Attach the ground wire to the terminal marked ground in the lower left corner of the circuit board. This grounding wire also provides lightning protection for the system. Then, route the power cord behind the lower pump from left to right and plug the power cord into the jack in the lower right corner on the back of the circuit board. Plug the power supply into the wall outlet. Next, prepare the 3 sensor wires for installation. Cut each wire to the proper length so that they can be routed into the ICM behind the lower left flexible hose. This will allow room for the cover to be replaced. Strip back the insulation and connect the 3 sensor wire pairs to their respective terminals: upper tank sensor, lower tank sensor, and roof sensor. When connecting the sensors, note that there is no positive or negative. Once connected, use cable ties to secure the ground, power, and sensor wires behind the left flexible hose. After initiating, off will be displayed. If any of the sensor wires are not securely fastened in the terminal, a fault code will be displayed. Take note, the SER code is the error code for the roof sensor, the SEU code is for the upper tank sensor, and the SEL code is for the lower tank sensor. This is an extremely important procedure and the steps need to be followed in order and exactly as explained. Here are a couple of notes before we begin. Note 1. Ensure the black pressure relief valve is not installed on the reservoir, as this will be installed later in the installation. Note 2. This procedure requires the FAFCO fill kit to purge the system of air and fill it with potable water and heat transfer fluid. Step 1. Install the 3/4 inch MPT by 1/2 inch tube adapters to the suction and discharge ports of the fill pump. Step 2. Attach a garden hose to the water supply and flush the hose until clean. Make sure the hose is free of any debris before moving to the next step. Step 3. Insert a 6-foot length of black tubing into the discharge port of the pump and insert the opposite end into the solar system fill valve. The fill valve is the upper valve. Step 4. Insert a 6-foot length of black tubing into the garden hose adapter and insert the opposite end of the tubing into the suction port on the front of the pump. Step 5. Attach the female garden hose by 1/2 inch tube adapter to the male end of the garden hose. Step 6. Insert a long length of black tubing into the solar system drain valve as shown here and place the other end of the tubing into a bucket or an appropriate location to drain. Step 7. Turn the fill and drain valves to the fill position by turning the handles horizontal to the ground. Step 8. Turn on the garden hose wide open to fill the system with potable water and purge all air. It is important to make sure the nozzle is turned completely open to ensure all the air gets purged. Water will stream from the drain line and from the valve port on the reservoir. Step 9. The proper way to determine if the air is purged is to place the end of the drain line in a bucket and wait for the bubbles to stop floating to the top. The system should continue to be purged for 3 minutes after the bubbles stop floating to the surface. Note, if after 5 minutes the system is not fully purged of air, stop the procedure and recheck all the connections and push fittings. Also, verify that the fill and drain connections are not crossed. Once the system is purged of air, it's time to perform the high and low pressure tests. These tests are to make sure the system will retain its liquid-tight integrity under a variety of conditions over time. You're now ready for the high pressure test. Start by shutting the drain valve while the hose is still connected and fully opened. This pressurizes the system. You can verify the drain valve is shut as it's in the vertical position. With the system under pressure, check again that there are no leaks in all fittings and components. Correct is required. Check that all push fittings are tight. Make any needed repairs and retest. Then, turn off the water at the supply. Loosen the hose from the water supply to relieve pressure in the system, and then retighten the hose. Next, close the fill valve. To perform the low pressure leak check, turn on the system and set it to test mode. As the low pressure test happens, check all fittings and components for leaks, as before. Check for a minimum flow rate and absence of air bubbles in the solar loop check valve. Check that all push fittings are tight. If you don't see any leaks, the system has passed the test. Remove the drain line from the system drain valve. It's time to head back to the roof to plumb in the reservoir. Using the reservoir location on the roof as a guide, cut the bypass tubing to the correct length on both sides of the reservoir. Lubricate the cutoff tubing with silicone and insert 3 inches into the rubber grommet on each side of the reservoir. Note, the reservoir relief valve is not installed on the reservoir yet. Now we are going to add heat transfer fluid to the system. This is also an extremely important procedure, and once again, the steps need to be followed in order and exactly as explained. Be sure to switch the system back to the off position before starting these steps. Step 1. Fill a clean bucket with the required amount of FAFCO HTF. Here's a chart to help you measure the correct amount of HTF based on the size of the system you installed. Step 2. Check to see that the fill pump switch is off. Then plug the pump into an electrical outlet. Step 3. Disconnect the garden hose and adapter from the black tubing on the pump section and place the tubing end into the bucket with HTF. Step 4. Turn the pump on, then open the solar system fill valve to pump HTF into the system. As the fluid is pumped into the system, an equal amount of water will purge from the reservoir onto the roof. This is normal. Step 5. As you fill, watch the bucket and close the solar system fill valve and turn the pump off when all the HTF has been pumped into the system. At this point, add a half gallon of water to the bucket and pump it into the system to get the last bit of HTF into the solar loop. Be extremely certain that you take care to shut the fill valve before air is pumped into the system. This is very important. Air in the system will cause the system to malfunction and can damage the components. Step 6. Run the system for 10 minutes to mix the fluid. Verify the freeze temperature is 9 degrees Fahrenheit or colder with the refractometer provided in the kit. If the freeze temperature reads higher than 10 degrees Fahrenheit, be sure to add more HTF until the correct freeze temperature is achieved. Make sure to note that FAFCO HTF is the only acceptable fluid for mixing and filling of the system. Step 7. Remove the tubing from the fill valve and install the black plug and locking clip. Step 8. Verify both valve handles are in the open position with the handles oriented vertically. Step 9. At the reservoir on the roof, use Teflon tape on the reservoir male threaded nipple and thread on the black relief valve. Hand tighten only. Thread the elbow onto the relief valve outlet and turn until the elbow is pointed down towards the roof. With the HTF fluid in the system, it's time to top off the reservoir. First, attach a garden hose fill adapter onto the end of the garden hose. Next, turn on the water supply and open the valve of the adapter to fill the hose with water and purge all air from the garden hose. Then, close the adapter valve. Now, insert the fill adapter into the drain valve and install a locking clip. Open the drain and fill adapter valves and fill the reservoir until water drips from the relief valve on the reservoir. Finally, close the drain valve. Turn off the water supply at the spigot and remove the hose to depressurize the system. Close the fill adapter valve and remove the garden hose from the fill adapter. At this point, verify both valve handles are in the operation position with the handles oriented vertically in line with the tubing. Verify the plug is installed in the fill valve and the locking clip is installed. Finally, verify the fill adapter is installed in the drain valve and a locking clip is installed. Move the solar switch to the test position to turn the pumps on. The green solar on light will illuminate. While in test mode, the screen will alternate between the selected temperature and test. Verify both pumps are operating. If the pumps are not flowing, ensure there is no air trapped in the lines. Raise the outlet side of the solar collector off the roof to allow any trapped air to escape. Ensure the reservoir is installed at the highest point in the system and that there are no other high spots that can trap air in the system. The test mode has a 4-hour timeout feature that shuts the pumps off and the display will flash test. While the system is off, the off indicator is continuously displayed. You can view the other temperatures by pressing the temp display button. U, L, or R will be displayed, representing the upper tank, lower tank, or roof, followed by the temperature. In test mode, the last temperature viewed will continue to be displayed until the temp display button is pressed. To activate the system, move the switch to the auto position to put the system into automatic operation mode. The upper tank temperature is the default reading. Gently place the cover on the ICM. Route all sensor and power wires through the opening on the left side of the cover behind the flexible hose. Push the cover on until the 4 side tabs engage. Congratulations! You have successfully installed the 500 series solar water heating system. The 500 series solar water heating system is designed to operate trouble-free for many years. But during installation, various factors might keep it from functioning properly. Here are a few tips that could help get things up and running correctly if the install didn't turn out as planned. If the system doesn't turn on as expected, place your hand on the ICM. You should feel a slight vibration and hear a slight hum. Be careful as some of the surfaces may be hot. If the system is not activating, confirm that the power cord is plugged into a working 120-volt AC outlet. Confirm that the power cord is firmly plugged into the controller power jack. The display should show auto. Verify that all sensor wires are firmly attached and functioning properly. If not, the controller display flashes SEU, SEL, SER for upper tank, lower tank, or roof sensor respectively. Verify the heat transfer fluid is flowing. The controller continuously monitors for water temperature increase in the water heater while the pumps are operating. If after 4 hours of operation, the controller senses the water in the water heater is not heating, the controller display flashes flow. After a system repair, system operation is restored by moving the solar switch to off, then back to auto. Verify the roof temperature is at least 10 degrees hotter than the lower tank temperature. Verify that the upper tank temperature is less than the selected max water temp. If the system shows signs of leaking, check the fittings and tighten the fitting or push the tube fully into the fitting. Refer to the section in the manual on the proper procedure for installing tube fittings. If the leak is coming from inside the ICM, contact FAFCO for further instruction. If the leak is coming from the solar collector panel body, a tube repair kit may be used to plug one or more tubes. If the leak is coming from the solar collector header, contact FAFCO for further instruction. If the leak is coming from the reservoir, other than the reservoir's relief valve, contact FAFCO for further instruction. If the system is low on hot water, run these checks. If the system has 2 tanks or an on-demand heater, refer to the water heater manufacturer's operation manual to troubleshoot. If the system has 1 electric water heater tank, suggest to the homeowner reducing or spacing out their hot water usage. Consider installing low-flow shower heads and other low-flow hot water fixtures. Consider upgrading to a larger water heater tank. Raise the water heater thermostat setting, but keep in mind this may decrease energy savings. Hopefully that solves your problems. If you're still not getting proper functioning out of the 500 series solar water heater system, contact FAFCO at 800-994-7652.